Rent to own or rent or own in New Jersey, South Jersey, Haddonfield specifically, zip code 08033 is what we're going to talk about here today. Did a couple studies here real quick. It'll be fun to see this. So we lived in Haddonfield for 22 months, and I will tell you what we found in terms of our own experience and what we found if you look at today, rent versus own. So don't forget to subscribe down below, my friends, and of course, thumbs up and comments always welcome. All right, so Haddonfield, New Jersey, that's where Halloween was. Was it John Carpenter or something like that? The guy who did Halloween. Halloween was filmed, was it Halloween? Yeah, it was filmed in Haddonfield. Actually, my wife's dad taught that guy Russian, because my wife's dad spoke dozens of Russian, Chinese, Italian, German, and he was a professor at Western Kentucky University where he taught Russian. I think he taught Chinese there as well. And my wife's mom was also spoke Chinese, believe it or not. Just think of, just real quick, my wife's dad's like a 6'4" Irish guy, white guy, you know, white as the day is long. And my wife's mom was a pretty tall lady from California too, not Irish, but definitely a little bit darker skinned than my wife's dad. But anyway, here are these two tall white people who can speak Chinese. I mean, if you ever saw that Seinfeld episode, man, where George's dad, is it George's dad, starts the Korean, you know, they're doing the nails and manicure and whatnot. I mean, I just think about that with those guys. They go to Chinese restaurants and start speaking Chinese. You know, two tall white people speaking Chinese to Chinese people. Just it cracks me up. But life, man, I tell you, this one makes humanity great. There's just so many things that can make you laugh, my friends. And if you don't laugh, there's something wrong with it. I hate to say it. So many things that are just funny, ironic, that you just gotta appreciate the life that you have, because it's wonderful. It's wonderful. Human beings are such a wonderful species. The idea that it's wonderful. So anyway, all right, we'll get off that. So, all right, so here's Haddonfield. That's what I was going to say. So Haddonfield's right outside, it's in Camden County, right outside Philadelphia. So you got Philly, you got the Delaware River, then right next to that is Camden, and the city of Camden is horrible. I mean, it's sad. It's horribly sad. There is no stores in Haddonfield. You cannot, in Camden, you cannot go, there's no like grocery store or anything like that. Retail shops, because of the crime. Camden is just a crime. It's just horrible. It wasn't always like that. It wasn't always like that. Well, anyway, so then you got Camden. That's where the diocese of the church actually was, right down there in Camden, as a matter of fact, which is interesting because, again, Camden itself is just, it's horrible. It's sad. And anyway, so then you go one way, you got Cherry Hill, and then you go the other way, you got Haddonfield. All right, so Haddonfield is very it's upper middle class. A lot of people strive to live in Haddonfield. You know, mostly you're going to have two income parents that they've sacrificed everything to get their kids in the good schools in Haddonfield, and they're willing to pay up for it for sure. Now, the nice thing about Haddonfield and well, I don't know about Cherry Hill so much, but Haddonfield is that the train goes right through. So I used to walk to the train, hop on the train, go into Center City, Philly, get off train, walk to work, and do the same thing back. I'm telling you, it's sweet. I hardly ever drove my car. It was freaking awesome. Beautiful, just maple tree lines, city streets, town streets, and it was a wonderful town to live in. But I'll tell you one of the reasons it's not here in just a second. It's horrific. But anyway, so that's Haddonfield. Wonderful place to be, good schools, the whole thing, small town. So if you were to buy a house in Haddonfield, now we're just doing 3-2-1437, and the reason we're doing that is because I couldn't find anything in the town that rents for a higher bedroom versus bathroom. There was, at least in terms of Zillow, I only found 2 properties in the whole town of Haddonfield, because we're only talking 8,000 people or something like that. But I couldn't find anything else in Haddonfield for rent that was in the proximity of that had anything. There was just nothing. I don't know if it's, I don't know what the legislature does there. I don't know. But anyway, 1437 square feet. That's what we're looking at in Haddonfield. This is on Ardmore Road, which is right off Maple Ave, which is where we used to live. $400,000 for this puppy. All right. Now the problem with New Jersey is that the property tax. So you got 1,400 square feet, and you're paying $10,000 a year in property tax. I mean, that right there takes away. You can't even deduct all that. You can deduct the first $10,000 now. The rest of that you can't deduct. I mean, it's just you're screwed. So any of your property tax, you can't deduct your state and local taxes. You can. So you got $10,000 per year you can deduct. That's it. So anything above this, You're not deducting it. And here's a $400,000 property in New Jersey. $10,163 is your property tax. And then you get, again, $1,200 a year in homeowners insurance. And you're looking at $2,026 as your principal and interest. You got to throw another almost $950 for your mortgage, for your homeowners insurance and property tax. So PITA, property, interest, taxes, and insurance. Property interest, $2,026. Taxes, insurance, another $946. Total payment is a little bit less than $3,000 a month right there. Now here's the rent. I mean, this house is literally 2 houses down the street, 321208, so it's a little bit less square foot. Yeah, I'm pretty significantly reduction square feet, 2,600 for the rent. So you're looking at two things here. 3,300 and basically $400 a month more for the house with a higher square foot versus the smaller property. Now here's the thing that's interesting about Haddonfield, and this goes against what I was saying before about Bernie, Texas. Haddonfield's built out. There's no more buildings being done there. What people are doing is they're ripping down houses and putting up a nicer house, and as you can see in a lot of these well-to-do communities like Alexandria and Arlington, Virginia. But you're not competing against new construction in Haddonfield, all right? And that has a big deal. That means that the supply is limited. Inherently, the supply is limited, and anytime you limit supply, you have limits of a supply. What does that do for price? Well, it keeps the prices high unless demand falls off a cliff. So you have a limited supply and demand is growing, and what's going to happen is there will be more and more people trying to get the lesser of a supply, which is going to mean the price will go up for supply. So that's one of the interesting things about Haddonfield, or any well-developed town where you're not competing against new build. The fact there's no more new construction means that the only thing you're competing with is other properties. All right, that's it. And so other properties have their own distinctiveness, which is not a bad place to be in a single family home environment, because you can say at the end of the day, you can price it accordingly to what the demand is. And as long as the schools are high, and I'll do another episode on the difference between good schools and bad schools, is it worth it? But as long as the schools stay high and the demand is high, the fact there's no more supply coming into the market, the demand's growing more so than the supply, which means the prices have an opportunity to continue to rise. So that's one thing that's interesting about Haddonfield for owning a home, or any house or any community where the demand or the supply is limited because of the building, they can no longer build. Now the drawback though is the property taxes. All right, so I mean that's a concern I'd have. So two things coming out to me for here in Haddonfield, or any well-developed old town, is you have demand will fluctuate, and higher demand means higher prices because supply is going to stay stagnant. So supply is stagnant, demand's going to fluctuate, which is good in a way and bad in a way, but the property taxes don't ever go down. The property taxes will only improve, go up and up and up, and so that's a drawback for people who are looking at buying. They're like, man, I just can't afford those property taxes in perpetuity, because look at this. When this sucker's paid off, this home was paid off, you still got $950 in property taxes a year. I mean, that's real. So you might not have a mortgage anymore, but you still got basically half of a mortgage in property taxes, homeowners insurance. I mean, who's going to want to do that when they retire? That's again a drawback about the high taxes and property taxes. That doesn't ever go away. It's bad. Now, secondly, all right, so if you have a fixed supply, which we do, it's a stagnant supply, it's not growing. Well, if you have a fixed supply, that's wonderful if demand is still high. But in a bedroom community of Philly, what is driving demand for this town? Well, it's a beautiful town for sure, but really what's driving is the schools. All right, so Haddonfield is notorious for a good school district, because the nice thing about New Jersey schools is like the old days, where every town had its school district. Well, the problem with that is every town has a school district. That means every town has its cost, all right? So what happens is you are literally hiring your teachers through your town. Your teachers and the principals and all that are hired through your locality, not through the county, through your town. So they're not part of Camden County School District. They're literally part of the Haddonfield School District, which means it's more expensive. So as long as the schools stay good and the demand stays high because the schools are good, and in fact we get a stagnant supply of properties, that price should more than compensate for the higher property taxes, I would think. All right, now a couple things going on here. If the demand falls because the school districts fall off a cliff for whatever reason, let's just say the school districts start losing their value in terms of they are no longer 9 and 10 in great schools, they're 8s and 7s. What does that do to demand? People say, why would I pay a premium for a $400,000 3-2 house when the school's only getting a 7? Or on top of that, demographics. What if there are less and less people having children who go to these schools? More and more single people, more and more empty nesters, less children to begin with, because we're seeing that as a demographic trend in the West, is that a lot of people are not even having kids. So why would you pay to live in Haddonfield if you don't have kids, when most people live in Haddonfield do it for the school district? So a couple of things that could hurt the demand would be demographics, for sure. Less kids, less people want to pay a premium to live in a high quality school district because they don't have kids to begin with. And then on top of that, what if the school district doesn't maintain its high ratings? And that's the drawback. Now, again, the alternative is the fact that the supply is fixed. Would say, hey, you're always going to have a high or a low supply, which means inherently lower the supply, higher the demand, the price goes up. But your supply is fixed, demand is fluctuating. So that's a challenge right there. So this is a tough one here. I mean, at the end of the day, would you rather rent or would you rather buy? I mean, that's a tough one. That is a tough one. The facts are there's just not that many rental places in Haddonfield. I'd probably buy here, but that's what we did, and we lucked out. I mean, we made out. No, we didn't make a whole lot of money, but we bought at the right time and sold at the right time. And of course, we always price it to sell. When we're fixing to move, we price it to sell because we want to make sure we get out of that puppy, move on with our lives. But that's a challenge there, and I see that property tax. I get real nervous, and I see the demographic trends of the Western society with less and less kids. Oh man, I don't know. That's a tough one there. So do some research. I'm actually going to do a video on Haddonfield versus Haddon Township, two completely different school districts. And I actually I emailed a professor of economics about the difference between putting your kid in a good school versus a not so good school relative to the price of your home. Is it worth it? And you know, it was interesting. We had a little back and forth, not negative. It's just he was like, well, it could be worth it, this, that, and the other. And I don't know. I'm going to look at the different prices here, and we'll see. Is it worth it to put your kid in a better school district when it's another $200,000 for the cost of your home? Well, I'm going to find out. So don't forget to subscribe and stay tuned for the other videos as well. And if you like what you see, thumbs up and comments always help. See you next time. Thanks, guys.